Have you ever wondered if some people's bad behavior is just a habit or is it an addiction? Today, my guest will not only help you find that answer, but will also discuss ways to live a more fulfilling and healthier lifestyle. Welcome to the Natural Healthy Lifestyle Show with Win-Win Women. I'm Rhonda Ormond Peterson, and I'm your show host. Sam Rafoss is a founder and CEO of Sober and Serene. She is a recovering wine addict, a holistic coach, speaker, and podcaster. Sam is an inspiration to all that know her. She encourages others to find their divine purpose and to live healthier, happier lives. She is a dear friend of mine who is beautiful, intelligent, and kind. Welcome, Sam Rafoss.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here today. So everyone sees you as this successful coach, speaker, and podcaster. And we know that it's not always as easy as it looks. So what is your story in reaching success?
Oh, wow. And first of all, Rhonda, yes, and when you were saying dear friend, you are such a dear friend of mine too. And the success and it depends how you want to, how you gauge success. And over the years, I guess I just look at success in my own way. Lots of times people look at success with, how much money you have, or, if you have a nice house and you have the family and the kids and the proverbial perfect life for you. And I think originally I thought success for me would be that, that I would be married and my kids and we'd live happily ever after, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with a very traditional family. My parents were farmers and my mom was a teacher. And then later on, they did real estate. And my parents always worked together and raised 6 kids. So that was kind of what I looked like success was to me. So when my journey didn't quite go that way, but I do have 3 wonderful daughters. They're young adults and I have 1 grandson. And so success for me was being able to be there for my daughters while I was raising them. And in all honesty, their dad and I were together until the girls were 6, 8, and 10. And when we did split up, at first I looked at myself as a failure. I didn't look at success in that way. So it was a little bit of a struggle for me there emotionally. However, once I did have the girls, I was a social worker, and I feel like I'm meandering, but part of the success for me was deciding that the girls were first, that I wanted to be a mom, that I wanted to be there for them. So I guess looking back on it, success for me is doing exactly what I wanted to do by having my career around the girls. So that's what led me into being an entrepreneur and having my health coaching business. And after that time of being a social worker. So even though it was a little bit hard in some respects, juggling it all, and maybe, at times some financial success or financial not as successful. However, I look at it all and I did everything I wanted to do. And success for me was freedom, to be able to be the mom to the girls and to be there for my kids. And that makes me happy. So for me, success is happiness and doing what I want to do all the time.
That is wonderful. And you have been successful in so many areas. Now, part of your journey was overcoming an addiction. Would you like to share this part with our viewers?
Sure. And and I always say I'm clear now. And when I say I am that recovering wine addict and I can look at it clearly, Rhonda, I'm 960 days that I have not had a glass of wine or any alcohol. And so I'm very clear now. My mind is clear. I'm coming up on 3 years, and anyone that does struggle with an addiction, and especially I'll speak with alcohol. So you struggle with that addiction. But for me, I did not realize it was an addiction. So like I was the healthy mom. I was a holistic nutritionist who ate healthy. I exercised, I meditate, I pray, I do so many healthy practices every day. So I had really normalized my wine consumption. So it was just part of my day. And some days I only had a glass, sometimes I had a lot more. And now that I look at it, and I think to myself, where did that addiction come from? And it really, like I said, now looking back, it stemmed from the time I did go through my divorce, because my identity was around being a mom and being a healthy mom, being feeding my kids healthy and being there for them. So when I first split up with their dad, it was, we did the proverbial 1 week, 1 week. So 1 week the girls were with me and 1 week they were with their dad. And so 1 week of course, you do everything because you're taking them to school, you're feeding them, their activities, just being with them. But when I first tried to get used to the fact that they were gone that other week, that's when I can look back now where I didn't know what to do with myself. So I worked like from sunup till whenever I wanted to stop. But when I stopped, I didn't know what to do with myself. And that wine addiction just crept in, because I would console myself, my kids aren't there. And I didn't want to think about it, Rhonda. I didn't want to think about not having them. So I can look at it now, and that's where, because some people will say to me, like, we had no idea that you had a problem with it. And I was really good at hiding it. I was really good at, being the functioning, high functioning, healthy woman that had it all together on the surface. Yet I used wine as a coping mechanism when I went home. So I was good at, making sure that I didn't do things like drink and drive. I didn't do things like if my kids needed anything, I wouldn't drink. If I had an opportunity to drink and I didn't have to think about anything else, then I would. And that's where the addiction just crept up on me. And it was the birth of my grandson in 2020 that was the catalyst for me saying, you know what, I'm going to try to go without wine for 30 days. And Rhonda, I could barely make it 2 or 3 days, because I had developed not only a physical addiction to it, but an emotional addiction to that glass of wine, because I used wine for everything, to celebrate, to drown my sorrows, to cope with social anxiety. And it just became my best friend. So it was really difficult to quit.
So how did you really decide that it had become an addiction versus just something that you would do as like more of a habit?
Well, on the diagnostic manual for diseases and mental health, I think it is, if you Google or you try to search for anything that says, do I have an addiction to wine, or am I addicted, or it'll have you go to this set of questions, and it'll ask you to answer this set of questions. And let me be clear, Rhonda, I knew I was addicted. I just didn't want to face it. I didn't want to really admit that I couldn't live without wine, because I was managing it. This is my wine brain. So I was managing it. However, when you go to alcohol use disorder, because the powers that be do not call it, you're not labeled an alcoholic anymore. They've changed the languaging, and it's not, am I an alcoholic? It's, am I addicted? So you answer these questions, and the questions are such that they'll say, in the past year, have you? And then there's a set of 9 questions, and it's like, drank more than you wanted to? Have you blacked out? Have you not been able to stop? Like, so there is a list of 9 questions, and you answer yes or no. So 2 or more yeses means mild addiction, 4 or 5 more yeses means more of an addiction. And if you're answering yes to all, you are severely addicted. So I was somewhere in the middle. So even though it confirmed what I already knew, I still didn't want to believe it. However, once I decided that I was really going to try to live without alcohol, and I really, truly, I didn't want to be addicted to anything and be there for my grandson. That really, really did become the catalyst of me saying, do I want to be the nana that has to have a glass of wine in my hand? Is that how I want him to remember me growing up? Or do I want to be the nana that's there for him and can spend time with him and, run around with him or pick him up anytime? And I just knew I had to figure it out for me, because once I started drinking, like if I opened a bottle of wine, Rhonda, at the last few years, if a bottle of wine was opened, I couldn't not drink it. So it became, I drank a bottle of wine or more a day. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out that that's too much.
Right, right. And it's so good that you were able to recognize that. Now, we know that there are all kinds of addictions, and alcohol and drugs are pretty common topics when we think of addictions. However, there are many others like gambling, pornography, spending money, even sugar and food addictions. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, without getting too deep and too into the medical part of it, because I am holistically trained in nutrition and body, mind, spirit methodology. So I'm definitely not trained in the medicine part of it. However, in my own research and even in my own experience of getting through it, what happens is it is a reaction, or your dopamine. So it's the chemical. We all have these different chemicals, but those that have an addictive personality or an addictive tendency, we are searching for that surge of dopamine. So you get the surge of dopamine. However, your body's chemistry and the chemicals that are going on with your addictive behaviors, it's like you wear them out over time too. So for me, I was doing okay with a little bit of wine to begin with over the years, but the more wine I consumed, the higher amounts it took for me to get that dopamine high, that feeling of euphoria is what dopamine does for us. So whether it's sugar, whether it's shopping, whether it's gambling, it's happening in the brain. So we are searching for that dopamine high. And some people are just more prone to that than others. So we're having to not only figure out other ways of coping, but it just doesn't have to do with just willpower. So, there is lots of people need treatment. You need to go to a treatment facility that specializes in whatever addictive pattern that you have.
That's really good. And so that's where you found your answers. Did you want to elaborate a little bit more on how your process worked?
Well, what I did when I and because I help people with their health, so I'm well versed in not only my own health, but whether it's losing weight or creating a healthy diet. I took some of those same tools that I did with health and nutrition, and I started to just transpose some of those with the addiction. And I help people with habits. So if it's anything, I do know that you have to replace that habit. So I knew early on that I had a habit, not only physically of drinking, but even times of day. And people talk about triggers. So for me, wine o'clock, which was 5 o'clock, that's when I would want to drink. At the end of the day, my mind was set on that. It was like, oh, okay, it's wine o'clock, now I'm going to drink. So I first of all, I started doing different habits. And when I say that, instead of drinking, I would go out and walk, or I would physically do something different. So there was that habit piece. But you also have to start thinking differently about whatever it is you're addicted to. And some people, find AA, there's the 12 steps, there's smart recovery, there's refuge recovery, there is, what's the other one I'm thinking? There's women for sobriety. Like, there are different types of groups that can help people with their addictive patterns. And there's shopping groups, there's Overeaters Anonymous, there's many different groups based on whatever you're addicted to. So for me at the beginning, I did a lot of it myself. However, if I know anything when it comes to getting through addiction, there's 3 parts to it. There's your self-care. So it really, really is important how you treat yourself. So being really kind to yourself, forgiving yourself, being really self-loving versus self-loathing and beating yourself up. So there is that. There's have a plan. And that could be a recovery plan that's your own, or a treatment plan. The more severe your addiction is, I highly suggest getting medical help, because just trying to go cold turkey is very dangerous to your health too. Because if you are addicted to a substance and then you just quit cold turkey, that can have detrimental effects too. So have a treatment plan, self-care, and support. Support is really, really crucial as well, whether that's someone in your family, whether that's a support group, no matter what it is. When you combine those 3 parts to it is when you successfully can go through recovery. So that's what I found anyway.
Thank you. So what message of hope can you give to those struggling with, or that have a loved one struggling with an addiction?
Well, if it's yourself, again, I just tell people, reach out to me. If you just want a conversation with somebody that's, been there and struggled through it. And I talk about, and it sounds a little bit flippant, and I don't mean it that way, but I've had 1,000 day ones. I've had like 1,000 times that I've said, oh, I'm not going to drink today, or I'm not going to drink tomorrow. And I would go a day or two and I think, oh, I'm fine. I can do, I'm healthy. I'm fine. Things are working. So if you are the person that, you're just curious whether, do I really have an addiction, or do I need help? I just say, reach out, have a conversation. If you really do know, like if you have answered those questions, because the questionnaires are online too, and anyone can go on there and or if you've had that conversation with your doctor and you know that you have that addiction, then just keep looking for ways that can work for you. And by that, I mean, search out different support groups, go where you'll feel comfortable. So just keep trying. And the most important thing is do not, and I just say to people, do not beat yourself up. That is the biggest thing that we have to do. Is we know that we know that there's shame and remorse and guilt for the things that we've done while we're drinking, and it doesn't serve a purpose. So focusing on what you want, and I always say, love yourself sober. Love yourself enough to just keep trying. So there's that. If it is a loved one, the loved one has to want to quit. You cannot bully someone into quitting. You cannot make demands on someone. You can't say, I mean, you can decide that you want a different life if someone isn't giving up their addiction, and you can make your own decisions. But to try and put your beliefs or what you think on someone else, it doesn't work. Anyone that's going through addiction, you do have to want it and make that decision yourself. So if the person has said, hey, I know I need help, then be there to support them, but encourage them to get professional help. And if you are the individual that is still struggling with someone in your family, then reach out to a group like Al-Anon. And Al-Anon is for those that are family members or significant others of people with the addictive habit.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Now let's talk for a minute about your holistic coach, being a holistic coach. What advice do you have to give our viewers about that?
Oh my goodness. I always think, how much time do I have? Well, holistic just means whole body. So we are looking at body, mind, spirit. So I work with my clients on a whole person, a whole person concept. So those that come to me for help, and I have helped, many women lose weight. I've helped people with a healthier diet and overcome, whether it be digestive problems, whether it be skin problems. And it usually comes from looking at not only what your diet is, so looking at what you eat, what you drink, looking at your exercise, what your thoughts. I deal a lot with people when it comes to the mind part, mind and spirituality. So I have a metaphysical background. So I'm always interested in what people think and what people believe. So the holistic part of it, it really is dependent on your belief system. So I can create a healthy program for anyone based on their lifestyle. And I don't, like I said, I usually say to people, I don't create diets. I help you create the lifestyle you want, which includes anything, mind, body, spirit. However, if you don't believe whatever it is you want to change, or whatever it is you want to be and do and have in your life, if you don't believe it, then it likely won't happen. So it takes time sometimes to change those belief systems. So I do work with a lot of people on their belief systems, and using metaphysical, holistic tools and tips, just simple things that can help you with your belief system and start achieving your goals.
Really great. Thank you so much. Now we know you've been successful in so many areas. What are your future plans? Where are you going to take all of this?
Well, I always say my focus is always my family. So my daughters are 18, 20, and 22, and my grandson is 3. So everything revolves around the 4 of us, and then my work. And I only do what I love to do. So right now I divide my time between, I coach other coaches. So I do coach other individuals. I'm a Fowler International Academy of Professional Coaching graduate, so I am one of their master coaches. So we use that system to train other coaches, so I do that. I work with health and wellness professionals to help them grow and market their business. So those are my two passions right now, just helping others achieve their success. So there's that. And then on the other side of it, why I focus on Sober and Serene, that other side of it is my podcast that I do weekly on YouTube, which is Sober and Serene, and interviewing those with a sober story that have come through their own struggle and now are succeeding in their life, or anyone that works in the sober and recovery space, because this is near and dear to my heart. And then my plan from that is to create a sober program based on the 12 principles from AA with another coach that I'm using his program, but I'm massaging it and developing it for Sober and Serene. So to have a free group program, and then anyone that wants to work with me one-to-one is where then they decide whether that's paid coaching. So I like to offer people a menu of options that work for them.
That's wonderful, wonderful. So we appreciate your mission to help people. And so is there anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers?
My mission is really just, I want people to, well, be sober and serene. And if sobriety is something that you're seeking, then that's great. If people don't have an issue with addiction, I still want people to be serene and happy and joyful. I'm an eternal optimist. I think people, as long as you search for love in your life, happiness, and serenity. So I talk about seek your peace, live your best life. They all seem like platitudes. However, I know that when that's all I go for every day, I wake up happy, I go to bed happy, and living in the way that I want to is what makes me happy. And that's just what I wish for everyone else. And it's all possible.
Oh, thank you. You know, you have such a calming effect, and I'm sure that our viewers can feel that. I know that each time that you and I have visited, you have very calming effect, and you are very optimistic. So thank you. I want to thank you for being my guest on the show today. And we've all been inspired by your message. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Rhonda.
We appreciate you. Now, if you have any questions, reach out to Sam at soberandserene.com. And I want to thank you for joining the show today. Join me next week and every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And remember, it's never too early and it's never too late to start living a natural, healthy lifestyle. As always, the opinions or points of view expressed in this content represent the view of the show host and my guests. The information I share is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.